Welcome to the Sooners 360 Recruiting Podcast, a podcast for OU recruiting fans by Sooners 360. Each week we catch you up on the latest OU recruiting news and provide opinions and evaluations on all things OU football recruiting. I'm Chris Mason, lead recruiting analyst for Sooners 360. This podcast is now sponsored by Sooners 360 on Patreon. To support this podcast, please go to patreon.com/Sooners360817 and click subscribe. It's only $2 a month, and there's also a free trial option. And I'm posting all of my recruiting content there. The link will also be in the podcast show notes. Also, this podcast is now part of the Believe Podcast Network. Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is episode 91. 2026 stars take center stage. So first off, we jump to the recruiting news, and we always start with commitment news. There is no commitment news. Last commitment, if you missed it last week, actually I think it was last weekend, was Cade Piaczek committed to Nebraska, and OU got Floyd Bacard. So no updates on anyone else. No commitments from any 2026 kids or 27 kids from the weekend's activities from the big event on last Thursday and over the weekend. We'll get to all of the names that did show up, but no commitments yet from that event. That doesn't mean there won't be some commitments to come after, maybe in August for 26 or 27. It's very possible. It happened last year, but we'll move on from there. The O-line guys that it seems like we track every week. Fasusi still deciding 8/21. Looks like he visited Florida over the weekend, who actually isn't part of his top five. So I'm not really sure how to interpret that. Andrew Babalola, no indication that he went anywhere. And his decision date looks like it might be around 8/12. That's kind of a guess that's been flying around and floating around on various podcasts and internet sites. OU looks like they're still in the lead for Fasusi, but and I don't think I'm not going to trust any sort of lead information, until maybe right before he announces, or something in the 8/19, 8/20 range when maybe all the dust is settled and his decision is about to be made. So that's where we are with that. Other news around OU targets: Christian Jones did not come in for the Party at the Palace event with the other 2025 commits. He stayed in Nebraska and apparently ran a camp for kids. Still think there's a chance there's a decision coming before he plays his first high school game in late August, early September. Or this thing could drag out. I'm not really sure how interested OU will be in that process if it does drag out, but other than the two offensive linemen, he's the only other guy that visited OU officially that does not have a home in OU's class or someone else's. So that's the quick recap of news. And as you can tell, not a lot of news in terms of commitments or 2025 traffic. No new OU offers, no new names that OU might be recruiting. I really think 25 recruiting is in hibernation until we get an answer from Jones, Babalola, and Fasusi in August. And then in September, OU might start things back up depending upon who they've missed and if any names are floating back up as legitimate targets. So we've talked about that. I could give you some, just some wild ass guess names, some scenarios that could happen or could not happen at all. I guess there's one last piece of information that is out there is Jonah Williams, who I've talked about as a fringe possible visitor this fall. Looks like he's announcing August, and OU's not in his final list, so I hadn't really paid attention to the date. But I think it's like August 20th or something along those lines. So officially put him in the parking lot of, put him out of your mind. He's not going to be a Sooner. I would think it's going to be Texas A&M or LSU or maybe Oregon. But he's got that whole Major League Baseball part of his process as well, which could make everything, could make his college decision moot if he is an early draft pick in the MLB and decides to go that route. I don't know that's going to be the case, but it's definitely been mentioned as a possibility this spring. And I haven't seen any baseball stats from him to know if he's had a great year or not. I kind of lost track of paying attention to every detail of his recruiting when he looked to be going sideways with the Sooners. So the bulk of this podcast is going to be an attack of new names. So it's time to start getting used to the new names for 2026. And I'll try and go over these as slow. I'll try to not hit you with the barrage of names. And I'll try and give you hometowns and rankings and where I think OU, what's OU's history with these players as much as I can. Okay? So the first group I would call are the guys who are currently or close to being 5 stars. And there were 3 players at the event that I think, 2026 players that I think sort of fall in that category. The first is definitely Brandon Arrington. He's ranked number 8 in the country by a couple of services. He's a 6'3", 180-pound athlete. He's on his Twitter X profile. He's saying he has a sub 4.4 40 time, electric 40 time. His high school footage would kind of back that speed up. He looks incredibly fast on film. He's from California. This is his first time in Norman. He obviously knows the next 5-star I'm going to talk about, Jaden O'Neal. Jaden and him in social media are hanging out a lot. It looks like Jay Valai has taken the lead in recruiting Arrington. That would seem to tell me that OU maybe thinks his ceiling at cornerback is higher than wide receiver. Obviously, a 6'3", 185-pound, 190-pound cornerback with sub 4.4 speed is sort of, that's how you build a cornerback in the cornerback factory, right? To steal Gay Bikard's term that he's been using lately. And then the third guy is a defensive tackle from Georgia, Deuce Geralds. He's a Ole Miss legacy. This is his second trip to Norman. He's 6'1", 6'2", 260, 270 right now. Could be like a defensive end, 3-tech. Probably. I don't know what his ceiling is in terms of his frame and getting bigger. But he's very well put together right now. He might be 255 or something like that. So seems very interested in OU, has given interviews about his visits to various sites, seems focused on the Sooners. Arrington visited Bama and Nebraska along with Oklahoma, kind of gave the same interview to Bama guys that he gave to OU guys in terms of how much he likes OU, how much, he's just, the interview seemed a little rote, but obviously he visited on his own dime, and OU had to make a connection with Jaden O'Neal. And beyond that, I don't think it could have gone any better. From an O-line standpoint, I've been talking that OU made some real progress in O-line recruiting with their camp session, and they had 4 camp guys return. The first big name is Felix Ojo from Mansfield, the 6'7", 280-pound offensive tackle, left tackle, who's got offers from absolutely everybody and projects to possibly being a top 5, maybe a 5-star guy by this time next year or by next spring, depending upon how his junior film looks. He just has, again, to use that cliche, if you go to the offensive tackle factory, you want someone with his size, his wingspan, if you want a left tackle, and with his mobility and agility to handle pass rushers. So this is the third time he's been to OU's campus. He camped at OU. He came for a spring event. He got an offer during that event. This is his third time. Mansfield is a place that OU has been able to recruit well. So I like where OU stands with Felix Ojo in terms of a top 5. I don't think he's beyond that kind of process. Toa Katoa, the massive Polynesian offensive guard from Euless Trinity, was back on campus. Again, camped at OU, got the offer, back for Sooners Under the Stars. He's 6'4", 6'5", 350, 360. Just looks massive without looking massive, if that, to use a complete contradiction. Then Kansas offensive tackle prospect Maxwell Robinson was down again. Again, this is his third trip. He came down in the spring, got an offer, camped at OU, and then came for Sooners Under the Stars. And then another camp offer at guard, Pulelite Primus from Midland. Came back to Norman. He camped at OU, and then he came back to Norman for this event. Again, you get Primus sitting next to Oho and Katoa. There's a photo of Primus and Katoa and Maxwell Robinson. And Maxwell looks small at 6'4", 290 in between Katoa and Primus. He's not small. He's not a small guy. But Primus is 6'5", 330, 320, maybe in that range. And as I said, Toa Katoa is just massive without looking grossly overweight or anything on that lines. Then there's two other guys. I'm not sure either one of these guys camped at OU have been in Norman before. The first one is Deacon Schmidt from Colorado. He's 6'5", 290, worked out. He's been making the rounds. He also went to Nebraska as well on this sort of trip. He's got some offers. He's a 3-star right now. He seems really interested in OU. I think the only issue here could be Noah Best and maybe Primus or Katoa committing earlier before he has a chance to decide where he might go. And then OU had massive offensive guard from South Carolina, Desmond Green, on campus. He's 6'5", 350. And again, he's big. He looks big. But again, so you had 6 offerable offensive linemen. I would say 5 of those guys are probably takes right now. I'm just not sure if Deacon was an offensive tackle, I would say he would be a take. But, if OU was to get Katoa, Ojo, Primus, and Robinson with Noah Best hovering around as another guy that they probably could get, OU could have 5 offensive linemen in this class that they would consider takes and have done a good job evaluating and recruiting. So O-line recruiting for 2026 looks to be off to a good start. We'll obviously see how those trends and how those things change, but we'll take that OU's been building good relationships with the kids and getting them on campus, getting a chance to evaluate them. Bill's getting a chance to really see how they work, and they're getting coached by Bill and developing relationships with Bill. And I think from a recruiting standpoint, OU's checking all those boxes, and that's really all you can ask at this point for those players. So next we have some safeties. OU had 3 top 200 type safeties on campus. The first one is Jordan Deck, who I've mentioned previously on podcasts before. He's 6'3", 190 from Lone Star Frisco, teammate of Ryder Mix, 2026 verbal. I think he has top 100 elite kind of potential. He's got such a long frame. He's so athletic. two-way player, wide receiver, safety. OU's focused on him at safety, it appears. And to me, he's another elite-looking safety in the sort of Peyton Bowen, Reggie Powers, Michael Boganowski kind of mold. Just an elite-looking physical player who you put at safety, and he can play center field safety, or at 6'3", 190, he's physical enough to come up and play the run. Top 200 safety, Jermaine Santana Diaz from the Houston area was also on campus. He's about 6'1", 180, really good film, physical, good in coverage, just a good-looking safety from the Houston area. Again, another good evaluation, good offer from Brandon Hall. Seems to be kind of repetitive there. But he's also that was his first trip to Norman, I believe. So OU's kind of establishing himself in his recruiting. Jordan Deck has been in Norman a couple of times at this point. He was obviously at the camp, and now he's back for Sooners Under the Stars, where he got his OU offer at the camp event, and then he's back for Sooners Under the Stars, which is always good to see offers returning for Junior Day events. The third 2026 safety was Xavier Harris from Florida. He's a 4-star top 250 kid right now. He's about 5'11", 185. Lots of programs, lots of offers. Getting him to Norman on his own dime. Good move by OU. He's from I believe, the Miami area. So, again, Brandon Hall kind of doing no wrong right now and getting 3 elite targets on the campus for the Sooners Under the Stars, 2 from Texas, 1 from Florida. It's hard to really knock that approach too much. Then we had 2026 wide receivers. These guys all had offers. I'm talking about people who all have everyone who has an offer prior to coming to the Sooners Under the Stars. First one is Mason James. I've mentioned him before. He's from Norman. I think he'll be the number 1 player in state for 2026. It'll either be Mason James or Taj Overton. It's not going to be Colton Yarborough. I don't know why. I don't know why you would have. I'm not knocking Colton. I just know he's getting a lot of publicity, and people are like, he's the number 1 player in Oklahoma. I'm sorry, guys. You can't be the number 1 high school player in Oklahoma if OU hasn't offered you. Unless you're an elite quarterback and OU's already gotten a quarterback from somewhere else. Yarborough's a defensive end. If Yarborough was truly the number 1 player in Oklahoma at 6'5", 235 at defensive end, he'd have an OU offer. If you're wondering why he doesn't have an OU offer, go look at his sophomore film. It doesn't justify an OU offer, and I don't think he really has committable offers from all the programs that he's listing. That he's listed. I mean, he's got offers from them all, but I don't think they're the majority of them committable. Now, he could go out and have a fantastic junior year and change this entire landscape. But right now, again, you can't be I'm sorry, I'm just sticking to that reality. You can't be the number 1 player in the state of Oklahoma without an OU offer, unless that OU offer is completely explainable. Like you're a running back, and OU has a 5-star running back from Texas verbal. I mean, something along those lines. But again, he's at defensive end. OU has no 26 defensive end commitments, and you always grab pass rushers, multiple pass rushers in a class. So that's why Mason to get back. That's why Mason James, I think, is the number 1 player in state. Taj Overton's 1A. They're 1A, 1B. We'll see what the junior film says. But Mason James, fantastic wide receiver, 6 foot, 180 pounds, play after play for Norman last year. Just a dynamite playmaker in the mold of. He's a little bigger than Ryan Broyles, but obviously Ryan Broyles was the Norman star, and then obviously Sterling Shepard from Oklahoma City. He just, he fits that mold of that kind of, those comps are so easy to fall into because of where he's from. So from the Dallas area, Jaden Pyle was back on campus. He's about 6'2", 185. He's got good offers, top 200, top 300 type player. Like I said, he camped at OU, and now he's back again. He's had an OU offer from the summer camp. He's been picking up offers around the country. He's a prospect to watch. And then Aljur Miles from Kaufman, Texas. Kaufman is southeast of Dallas. He's saying on his Twitter that he's 6'4", a little under 200 pounds. I've watched his high school film. I could buy that. He was also on campus as well. He could be the big receiver in this class. Maybe a little undervalued right now, underappreciated. So very similar to what OU, the recruiting process Emmanuel Choice has gone through. OU ID'd early, offered early, and so far the recruiting services haven't caught up to Emmanuel Choice's talent level. Maybe they won't catch. If he chooses OU, maybe they won't catch up on Miles. Just to recap, the 26 verbals were all there, all three of them. Jaden O'Neal, Jonathan Hatton, and Ryder Mix. And also 2027 verbal, Zane Rowe. And when I'm talking about names here, I'm talking about someone I have confirmed via social media was on campus. So there may be other names that were there, but I'm going purely by the guys that I've been able to confirm via their social media accounts. They were there in Norman, photographic, digital image verification that they were there. If I'm missing a name, then you're wondering why I haven't mentioned it. Please feel free to put it in the comments or in the comments on the YouTube version of this, or feel free to email me at atlantasooner@gmail.com. Let me know who I'm missing and point me towards their social media evidence. So other names of note, Titan Davis, the 6'5", 250-pound plus defensive end for 2026 from St. Louis was there. He's a top 50, top 100 type player. I know you pull D-line talent out of Missouri with Missouri's NIL legislative advantage. We'll see. Then some 2027 names. Samaj Stanford from Jenks already has a whole bunch of offers. He's 5'11", 180-pound DB athlete. Obviously he's a 2027 kid, so he's probably got some growth. He's probably got some growing still to do. Wouldn't surprise me if he's not 6 foot, 6'1" by the time we're talking about him and his class. Another Tulsa area player, Joseph Graves, another in-state offer. OU's offered Samaj Stanford. They've also offered Joseph Graves of Tulsa, Booker T, Washington. He's a 6'3", 280-plus defensive tackle. On film, I'd say he's probably a top 50, top 100 kid. He could get higher than that if he grows. If he's 6'4", 6'5", 300 pounds by the time he's a high school senior, with his agility and defensive tackle ability that he's showing right now, he could easily be a 5-star. Elite cornerback Montre Jackson, and I'm saying elite by his offers. He's got offers for everybody. I think he could very well be a 5-star in 2027. He's from Garland, Texas. He's been in Norman several times, and he's an elite-looking kid. Big frame, super athleticism, just looked really good at the OU summer camps. And then a little bit of a surprise, 2027 Illinois QB and OU offer. Trey Taylor was back on campus. OU is continuing to recruit Trey Taylor along with 2027 linebacker Peyton Houston. Trey Taylor is from Carmel. He's from Illinois. He plays in Carmel, Illinois, kind of the outer suburbs. So A lot of good high school quarterbacks have come out of the Carmel high school sort of region. So it's interesting to see that OU's still involved there when Peyton Houston seemed to be really connected with OU during his visit. So we're going to wrap up this update on Sooners Under the Stars. Obviously, new kids show up and new offers go out. So for 2026, OU made 2 new offers. The first one is to Zion Robinson, a 6'4", 180-pound wide receiver from Mansfield, Texas. I've just watched his film recently for a big, rangy wide receiver. He shows some agility and suddenness and speed to his game that you don't often see from big wide receivers this early. He looks very fluid. If he continues to develop along these lines, he could really blow up to be an elite recruit, I think. Then Hudson Woods from Spring Branch, Texas, 6'3", 220 edge player. Again, watch this film. He's a really good edge rusher. Gets to the quarterback, flashing some pass rushing moves and counter moves, and very physical. Was really productive last year in both tackles for losses and sacks. So he's a name to track for 2026. But obviously 2027 is still out there. OU's not slowing that recruitment effort down at all. And they offered 3 kids I think that have serious elite potential. First is Eli Johnson from Cibolo Steel. That's Jonathan Hatton's high school. He's 6'3", 190, an athlete, plays both ways. Right now, wide receiver and safety. Not sure what his future position is, but he's a fantastic looking athlete at that size for a high school freshman. Then OU dipping back into Georgia for a Stone Mountain, Georgia edge rusher, KJ Green. He's 6'5", 215. Based on the images sent from the Stars, he's a legit 6'5". Again, I've watched his film. He is a freaky, twitchy, mutant pass rush edge kind of guy that you want to grab that Georgia just seems to produce year over year. So OU getting involved early there maybe allows them to crack the Georgia defensive line protective shield. Somehow USC has cracked it. They're getting it. They've got a 2025 linebacker that they've just flipped from Georgia, and they've got a 2026. I think it's 26, maybe 27. Edge rushing linebacker Xavier Griffin has verbal to them. Now he may never sign with USC, but for some reason USC's hitting Georgia hard, and they're fast. They're pushing for some commits and getting some commits. So that'll be stories interesting. National recruiting stories to track. Less impacting OU. Although OU did offer Xavier Griffin, obviously he can still take visits. Nobody that Lincoln Riley gets a verbal from stops being recruited. We know that. Then the last offer was to Devontre Kirkland, 6 foot, 175-pound cornerback from Waco. Again, his film's really good. He's got good length, excellent agility and speed for a high school freshman. And again, 6 foot with speed, good length. Those kind of cornerbacks, that's trending to be another potential elite recruit. So I know I've hit you with a lot of names. We'll continue to refresh these names over the next month for 2026 and 2027. As we turn the page on 2025, we'll obviously be heavily focused on the decisions from Fasusi and Babalola, and if Christian Jones happens, we'll have complete coverage of all of those on this pod. But barring some new names and some new offers or some new names popping up, 2026 is going to be where the most action is going to be this fall. So thanks for listening. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, and don't forget to leave a rating. Please visit patreon.com/Sooners 360-817 to subscribe for more recruiting content and to directly, if you enjoy this podcast, the Patreon site directly supports everything I do here. So if you enjoy this podcast for free, please consider to please go to patreon.com, search for Sooners 360, give the website a try, because it's one of the mechanisms that really allows me to keep this podcast free. So thanks, everyone, and we'll be back later this week with another recording.